because I don't think I've ever received the transmission for this Nectar Stream of Healing. Once I receive the transmission, I'll recite it in Tibetan for everyone. At the moment, I'm just translating it. I planned to do this a couple of days ago, but I simply did not have the time. If I do get the chance, I can recite it for everyone then, if you'd like. So with that, let's officially start today's class. Next, we'll continue our exploration and study today. As planned, Mipham Rinpoche's Nectar Stream of Healing. The general content should be quite clear. The wording is also relatively easy to understand for most people, and it is quite simple to follow. If we want to study this short treatise, there shouldn't be any difficulties. It's just that perhaps we haven't studied this kind of mind training method before. After learning it, you might experience some changes. Just like the topic of utilizing suffering and happiness on the path that we discussed and explored in detail earlier on, it has indeed been helpful for many people. If you study it repeatedly, over and over again, it will be even more beneficial in your daily life. So this is the same for us as well. I planned to discuss the second question yesterday, but later on it seems I talked a bit too much. So I didn't finish it yesterday. We'll definitely continue with it today, just as planned. As we discussed previously, we'll cover the latter part of the second topic right here in this session. I already talked about the earlier part yesterday. Normally, as long as we still have a breath left, if we rely on this impure body to practice perfectly, at death, it will be like a full moon. Everything that we have done in this lifetime, in our lives, can ultimately be brought to a perfect conclusion. To achieve this, we must have a firm, unwavering and steadfast mind. This is absolutely very important. Here in this peaceful valley surrounded by gentle hills, none of us have come for fame, nor we come for profit, nor for any other purpose in any way. What is the purpose in coming here? To seek the true Dharma. What is the purpose of seeking true Dharma? So that we and others can be liberated. This is our only purpose and nothing else. If we fail to do this and spend our days quietly gossiping and carefully judging what is right and what is wrong, every day people can be found idly chatting with their fellow practitioners, engaging in relaxed and noting others' faults. Then honestly, to be honest, it would be better if you didn't come here at all, because if you do come here, all of our external resources here are still quite limited, including our accommodations and amenities, and the food and hygiene here. All of these are managed inside and out by the monastic community. If you come here and don't, for example, practice properly, you're causing negative karma by being here, just squandering your merit, nothing more. This includes those of us who are currently living in the communal housing right now, whether it's in phases 1, 2, or 3, or perhaps even in other places elsewhere, for example. Some practitioners really don't, whether it's water or electricity, good for the local surrounding environment. They often neglect what they should do and are especially well known for doing things they shouldn't be doing. Everyone is quite well known for this, because whether a person is good or bad can't be decided by themselves. Others are watching and taking note. Everyone is absolutely, without any doubt, very clear. Some things were originally lent out to everyone in the beginning, for example, for 1 or 2 years. But later on, some people just occupy the house for themselves without considering cause and effect. They don't even bother to inform the relevant management staff. If you just occupy such resources casually, you aren't studying or practicing. You haven't acted with genuine intention. Some people, though they lack a place to stay, if you use a public room, you should still act with a sincere heart and repent. Whether attending teachings before Dharma teachers, you conduct yourself according to Dharma in many respects. For people like this, even if they use the Sangha as property, in fact, it's actually quite acceptable. But if that's not the case, I honestly and sincerely think, and I really do mean this, having come to such a sacred place, I hope you won't create negative karma either. If you are going to do unwholesome deeds, it's better to do them in the city. In the city, here, there are countless opportunities to do bad things, far too many. Opportunities to do good deeds are very few and far between. So I think truly whether you are a layperson or a monastic coming to a sacred place, you should reflect on your own body and mind. If you stay here, are you truly worthy of it? Because this is a place for study, contemplation, and practice. Right from the very beginning, here at Larongga, as you may know, in the first propagation period, first Tujom Rinpoche, there are only a few hundred practitioners. Second propagation, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok established this Dharma Center starting in 1980. It has currently, in fact, been more than 40 years since then. Over these 40 plus years, spanning a period of time, countless eminent monks and great masters have, as well as many truly remarkable people who have spread the authentic Dharma. It has also nurtured many practitioners who have truly attained realization in this very lifetime. Another group composed of genuine spiritual friends who benefit both themselves and others. Another group, although they haven't manifested accomplishment in this lifetime, have at least not committed any negative actions in this lifetime and did good. This is another group. Here we also have a group of people who committed wrong actions, broke their vows, and violated precepts, who at the time of death harm both themselves and others. There will certainly be a small number of such people as well. So, as I mentioned yesterday, everyone must maintain vigilance and not be careless. In fact, ordinary people should constantly examine their own minds and should frequently remind themselves to themselves. Otherwise, our minds, which are continually and persistently being controlled and influenced by the powerful forces of karma and various afflictions, may not naturally engage in virtuous actions. Most of the time, our actions, in fact, go against the true Dharma. We are subject to the ripening of karmic forces accumulated since beginningless time, harm from demons, heretical paths, as well as possible harm or negative effects from spirits, non-human beings, and other entities. When all these causes and conditions come together, we may end up committing actions that are not in accordance with the Dharma. This is slandering true Dharma, or anger at others, or holding impure views toward other Dharma friends. If things go on like this, then it truly makes coming here not worthwhile for everyone. That's why I emphasized this point repeatedly yesterday. Can't manage long term, then at least for this year, can you set a strict standard for yourself? Even if I were to die, even then, I would not get involved in all sorts of gossip and disputes, nor would I focus on the faults of others. I would look at myself and focus on practicing diligently. If everyone protects and guards themselves, then this year should certainly turn out to be, without a doubt, a very good year. If that's not the case, many people might be relying on the merit accumulated in, so their minds are pure and their conduct is. But there are also some people who may have all sorts of different situations. If we use awareness and mindfulness, most people should be able to practice and benefit sentient beings through awakening in meaningful ways. This is achievable in this lifetime. So here I want to add a few words. Earlier, I kept emphasizing that we should have a firm and vigilant mind. I value this. Indeed, it is very important for each of us to constantly remind ourselves, continue. Those people who do not diligently practice virtue when they are not ill, people who, when healthy, spend every day eating, drinking, having fun, because they are afraid of getting sick, they start to make prostrations, circumambulate, purify obstacles, and so on. There are cases where Eunice serves as a spiritual teacher. Does happen. because usually these are very scattered people, but once they do eventually fall ill or even just fear becoming ill, they often do virtuous acts, walk around and prostrate. As for our mandala here, specifically the one we are focusing on recently, they said that during the pandemic, it's not really appropriate for too many people to gather together. So on the mandala, as you can see, the management committee and work group members are on duty every day. They say circumambulation is temporarily not allowed. You can walk around 3 times, no more. So, dear fellow practitioners and colleagues, perhaps it might be better not to go there for the time being at this moment in time for now. They are watching and keeping an eye on things. Originally, if someone was sick, or they might circumambulate the mandala, the stupa, or monastery, prostrate themselves, confess, recite the 100-syllable mantra, if that's the case, because this illness is like a spiritual teacher. It has also become a true spiritual teacher. This kind of situation can happen. Therefore, one should rely on it. Use a condition of illness to cultivate virtuous roots and train the mind, thus making it a truly skillful means, as well as a wise and reliable companion on the path. So what should we really rely on? We rely on skillful means to turn illness into support for the path. What does this really mean? Because by relying on the condition of illness, our virtuous roots are further developed and matured. Our spiritual practice yields more and more results gradually over time as we continue. In this way, the original illness actually, in fact, becomes a companion that supports us in practicing the true path. It thus becomes a kind of skillful means. So from this perspective, it is true that illness allows the virtuous roots within our mental continuum to revive more and more, and even mature in an especially ideal way. In this way, whether we are sick or not, in my lifetime, if I fall ill, I will properly repent and circumambulate. If I don't get sick and do nothing at all, then is it better to be sick or not to be sick? We can say that from the perspective of liberation, it is really better to be sick. So such an illness, in some teachings of great masters of the past, is compared to medicine. Perhaps you have seen it. This passage is taken from Master Liangqi's collection called Essays from the Bamboo Window, a well-known work in Buddhist literature. In this work, it is mentioned that he said that for worldly people, illness is a painful thing, but for eminent monks and great masters, those who are highly respected, illness is a kind of good medicine. Some people wonder, how is illness good medicine? Illness and medicine are opposites, but in reality they are not contradictory. Why is that? Every one of us will experience illness in our bodies. When ill, we can use this illness to contemplate impermanence. You can cultivate detachment yourself. When we practice many virtuous deeds because of it, then illness becomes a kind of catalyst for repentance and awakening. So Master Liangqi also said, ever since I became a monk, I have had 3 serious illnesses. Each and every time I was unwell in my life, it always brought me a new sense of repentance and awakening. As for repentance and awakening, I'm not entirely sure. I remember always a realization. With each period of practice, there was progress. So in this particular way, illness, as surprising as it may seem, is actually a kind of good medicine. You could say that, you see, it's the same here. We need to rely on skillful means. Of course, we may need to contemplate this often ourselves. Logic only. Otherwise, when you're not sick, you might think it's good to get sick. But once you actually fall ill, as mentioned earlier, some people become weak and powerless, or even start to complain. In the end, illness may not necessarily become a spiritual teacher or a skillful means, relying on it to commit evil deeds. There are also such cases. After some people fall ill, they may even start to verbally abuse or physically hit the people around them, such as family members, friends, or caregivers who are trying to care for and support them during this challenging period. So generally speaking, as a rule, after we get sick, we should rely on the illness and with deep sincerity, wholeheartedly try our very best to practice truly virtuous actions. Patients are difficult to take care of, so really no one wants to look after them. People who lack spiritual cultivation or those without education or refinement, they seem remarkable. Getting any illness seems like a big deal to them. Whether it's doctors or nurses or the people around them, they often end up driving everyone away. With this kind of behavior, in the end, no one will really want to take care of you or look after you for no reason at all. So when we ourselves are ill, you should let go of your pride even more, because I told you right before, I fall into the situation. Now, at this very moment, you have already found yourself in this situation. And despite anything you may have, at this time, you must be grateful to everyone, whether medical staff or the people caring for you. You must have a heart of gratitude. Because when you're sick, you may be very irritable, feeling especially anxious and fearful. This actually happens quite often. At such times, frequently pray to the three jewels yourself. Transform this illness into something useful for the path. This is very important, especially for those who teach the Dharma, those who practice renunciation. And true practitioners, people like this, need to reflect. For those of us who teach the Dharma to others, or those who practice renunciation, like the Geshes, or some meditation masters and practitioners, or monks and teachers, Kenmos teachers, or those who are always earnestly preaching and teaching the Dharma to others. Nowadays, some of us who teach the Dharma, including Kenmos, shouldn't boast too much right from the start. They go, I'll transmit secret teachings to you. Even when they have no realization at all, they still want to pass on these teachings. I heard it all this time. Some Kenpos and Kenmos give teachings to others without permission. They casually teach even to those who haven't completed the 500,000 preliminaries. Such people are really overestimating themselves. You can't just do things arbitrarily. Many masters, monks, they protect realization and act carefully, know a little, teach others. So these people really do need to be especially careful. Teachers, renunciates, practitioners, those who have been in long-term retreat, these people should also reflect in this way. How do they reflect? I have always been pretending to teach the true Dharma and also leading others. You can also remind yourself this way. I often put on a show in front of others. When I speak, it always sounds nice. I know how to talk just like I do now. But this time, by personally experiencing this illness, let's see if I can really transform this negative condition into a part of the path. Now that I am sick, use misfortune as spiritual practice. Can my actual practice truly be called to have truly developed the essential signs of warmth? Whether you have this is something you must examine, because when you are sick, this is actually a major test. It's simply an examination, and it's not just about getting sick, not even for a moment. Whenever something happens, or when people around you treat you a certain way, it all suddenly becomes very clear. For some people, even if just a minor issue arises, it's really not a big deal at all. Doesn't affect them, but they immediately put others on their blacklist. This isn't doable. If the other person has it on their phone, they can still find you. So putting them on your blacklist doesn't really do anything. You can see this clearly. When to blacklist, and then all sorts of things are said about them in front of others. Some people do kick others when they're down. At times like this, we often say, a friend in need is truly a friend indeed, as the saying goes. These moments you see your true friend and aren't your friends, and who truly treat others in a certain way. That's just how things are. This applies to your own teacher, Dharma teachers or fellow practitioners. For some people, except for very few, I saw something. Wasn't South Korea's former president in prison for 4 years. When she was finally released, she had just recently and publicly endorsed someone. They're picking a leader. Why did she endorse this person? She said, back when I was, impeached, everyone else kicked me when I was down, but he was always genuinely good to me. Truly, he was. Even when I actually ended up in prison, this person still treated me well. This is something that for many of us, even though we haven't experienced anything as major as the Cultural Revolution in the past, even the slightest bit of trouble, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, some people through all sorts of actions and in all kinds of ways. Okay, we understand. On one hand, some people are more timid. On the other hand, some are wise and need to protect themselves. Some people perhaps are just a little bit foolish or maybe even somewhat naive. a person's usual behavior, but at that very moment they begin doing all sorts of different things to others around them. If your judgment of others is truly fair, then at a critical moment it's not wrong to use it. But if the other person hasn't done anything at all and you pin things on them, and then putting on an act, at that point you start to harm others. In fact, people can actually be very pragmatic at times. Churchill once famously said in a memorable speech, "No permanent friends. There are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests." This is a political statement he made. But in reality, for us practitioners, sometimes when certain things happen, that you can truly and honestly see a person's real nature. So here he is as a mage, as a practitioner, or as someone who often thinks their own practice is quite good, or even considers themselves to be enlightened. When these people fall seriously ill, or when you need surgery, that's when you see whether all your usual big talk, if you think you are enlightened, can actually hold up and truly endure in that very moment when it counts most. And in the future, you won't become so-called. If that's the case, when things go smoothly, you pretend to be a practitioner, and when you encounter setbacks, you revert to being an ordinary person. This is something we've talked about in various ways before, actually, and I've also posted about it on some other platforms. Actually, this is very important. We Tibetans often say this, but with this saying, this is a paraphrase here. If translated literally, it means that when you have enough to eat and wear, and the sun is shining warmly, you pretend to be a practitioner, but when you encounter all kinds of pain and disasters, you just gradually become an ordinary, everyday person. For us, might be that when nothing is wrong, when everything is peaceful and your health is good, at that time you think, oh, I'm enlightened. I have realized the nature of mind. You can even talk about it quite well and with confidence in front of others. But when you face adversity or fall ill, can you actually apply your practice then? When things go smoothly, everyone thinks you're a skilled practitioner, but once you encounter setbacks, what you say may not necessarily always be put into practice. Treatise on the accumulation of bodhi. One should conduct oneself in accordance with what one says at all times. If one acts as one speaks, others will develop faith. This means that if what you say is actually carried out, your actions match your words, then that is called being consistent in word and deed. If actions match words, then others will also gradually develop a sense of faith in you. So we should absolutely do our best to ensure that our daily practice and our so-called realizations in daily life can all be applied when we fall ill. You can see some people can use them. We may think they haven't realized much, or haven't grasped it, but at critical moments, while this person really, truly, no matter what kind of teachings or instructions on practice it is, whether traditional or modern, is still able to apply them so well. Sometimes we wish for better things in everyday life, Kempo and Kemmo. Or sometimes we consider ourselves to be practitioners, but at such times, it really does seem that it truly doesn't help at all. Sometimes when we encounter setbacks in life, it truly tests our practice. Take a look at your usual practice, impressive to say, but when something actually happens, when something real or significant truly occurs, can you actually apply your practice? This is very important, and it is essential that you pay close attention to it. If ill, use hardship to practice genuinely. It might be better to connect these together. You must, with care, carefully apply the practice that you have just cultivated to your illness. Turn adversity into support for practice. This is one section. Then he gives a summary below as follows. Whether we are practicing or teaching the Dharma, for those of the highest capacity, everything is transformed into the nature of view and practice. How do superior practitioners transform illness into the path? For those of superior capacity, they possess the view of Dzogchen and Madhyamaka. Within this state, where everything is ultimately ungraspable, for such individuals, illness simply does not exist. Illness has never arisen. One generally accepts things in this particular way, usually, but this is really hard for us.
If you have realized Dzogchen, realize Madhyamaka, awakened mind, see, falling ill is in truth nothing more than a game within samsara. In reality, it poses absolutely no harm. So this is the method by which those of the highest capacity transform illness into the path. Those of middling capacity gradually transform through mindful training and by recognizing illusion, aspiring to perfect accumulations and purify obstacles, and transform it into the path for average capacity. For people of middling capacity, through the practice of exchanging self and others, and through recognition of emptiness, recognizing that this illness is like a dream and illusion. Using this illness, as we discussed earlier, they strive to accumulate merit and purify obstacles, and also make aspirations. Middling capacity turn illness into the path. For those of average capacity, some we might be able to do, while others are not within our reach. For example, when you are ill, you rely on this illness to confess karmic obstacles accumulated since beginningless time. Relying on illness, make virtuous aspirations, and avoid creating negative karma. Illness becomes the path. And many of these practices are things we can do for average capacity. What about the inferior ones? What should those of lesser capacity do? They should also try to transform their mindset, as described here, to personally experience or genuinely accept it. What this means is that for those of lesser capacity, we have discussed many visualization methods here, including the practice of accepting and rejecting according to cause and effect, and regarding it as a spiritual teacher, and recognizing that illness itself has many merits. In all these methods, if one simply cannot accept the states or conditions of higher capacity practitioners, those in the average capacity also can't, as for inferior ones, at the very least, when falling ill, some of the contemplative practices we have discussed here, the ideas discussed here, some of the contemplative practices mentioned in this treatise, not all of them, but some parts. For example, you might think perhaps, if I can generate even a little bit of bodhicitta, or if I find that I can't actually generate bodhicitta, maybe this illness is an opportunity for repentance and purification. All those other than the superior and the middle, one can start to turn the situation into the path using. Moreover, through this illness, you can personally experience the suffering of beings in the lower realms and the suffering of other patients, or the suffering of samsara as a whole. Many people experience it through illness, such as a serious disease or condition. With this personal experience, it also becomes a condition for spiritual practice in the future. Do your best to align with your own wisdom and thereby transform illness into the path. According to your wisdom, if you are high capacity, use the methods of superior practitioners to transform it into the path. If you are average, use the methods of middling capacity practitioners to transform illness into the path. Lower capacity, use lower capacity methods. At least after falling ill, you won't be like ordinary people who suffer intensely. In fact, people in the world today are sometimes pitiable. When they get sick, it's as if a madman has fallen into a deep abyss. If a madman falls, his mind is unstable. He takes things, but no matter how much in the same way, when people nowadays fall ill, they feel there's no hope, nothing to rely on. But for us, at least we can think, I won't recover from this illness. In my next life, I will make strong aspirations. I'm sick. It must be due to the karma from killing others since beginningless time. Illness shows impermanence. Back when I was healthy, I looked well in photos. But now, after unexpectedly falling ill, my body has become as pitiful as that of a hungry ghost. What the Buddha said, all phenomena are impermanent, is correct. Then we can reflect that this contaminated body is a city of disease. It is like that. I hurt here and I hurt there. Reflect. The Buddha spoke in the sutras about the suffering of suffering. You see, I am in pain, and now my mind is also suffering. People around me ignore me. They have all really abandoned me. In this way, we may truly have so very many, as people of faith, those with these, after falling ill, there are many aspects to consider which can actually become, in a way, a positive method of practice. If we don't have this perspective, everyone really feels hopeless and miserable when they are sick. This is something everyone can see for themselves. So The method of transforming illness into the path is also very important. I think I once translated a book, I've forgotten which one, when Marpa Lotsawa went to study under Naropa. When studying with Naropa, India was very hot at that time, and he contracted a fever 13 times. Each time he got sick, he almost died. Later, once when he was ill for a time, his teacher Naropa personally came to his side. Then he said, because my oral transmission instructions are too profound, this obstacle has indeed arisen for you, but you truly have great faith in both me and in the Dharma itself. Indeed, I will do my very best to pray to the three jewels to bless you. You definitely won't die, but it is best to regard this illness as a blessing from the three jewels. Do not lose compassion for sentient beings. Do not abandon your mindfulness and awareness. At that moment, Marpa Lotsawa was deeply moved. His teacher personally came to visit him in his illness and comforted him in this way. He said he was very grateful to the Guru. No matter whether I live or die, whether I continue on or my journey ends, I feel all is blessed by the three jewels. I will not have any other thoughts ever. In fact, the words of these truly great masters who have shaped history and inspired generations, whether they are ill at any time or just in their daily lives, their actions are simply different from ours. If it were us, we might say, Master, why has your Dharma made me develop discriminating thoughts? Why am I experiencing obstacles in my path or along my journey? So generally speaking, for those who are fragile, the saying, as the way rises a foot, the demon rises 10. But for someone who is diligent and strong, it should be the way rises 10 feet when demons rise 1 foot. It can be vice versa. Because if one is truly diligent and strong, even if there are some adverse conditions in the mundane world, obstacles can take hold. Therefore, when you are ill, you must strengthen your mind. It's not actually because of the illness itself. I have no hope, not even a little bit. Perhaps this is the final stage of my life in this lifetime. But by relying on this illness, if I can truly make a heartfelt and sincere wish, one that comes from a place of, then this vow is not necessarily always something we can make when we are healthy. So illness does indeed have this kind of value and this kind of truly positive significance. That is why we should regard it as an important spiritual teacher, because through illness, we do not become careless. And we practice the true path. This is truly the case. There are many such cases in history, so we need to understand this principle more clearly. Next, the third question, recognizing illness as a companion on the path and truly practicing the 6 perfections. Because we know illness is actually an aid to our spiritual practice. We can practice the 6 paramitas. Everyone know. 6 paramitas are an important practice in Mahayana Buddhism. No matter which scripture it is, if it is a Mahayana scripture, it advocates 6 paramitas. So in that case then, how do we rely on illness to practice the 6 paramitas? As for the 6 paramitas, practicing generosity, morality, or patience alone, how do we practice them when we are sick? It is possible. Some people who aren't sick don't practice the 6 paramitas well. But when ill, they practice the 6 paramitas well. To cultivate the mind through generosity, think like this: although samsara's appearances are impermanent, suffering, and without self, but I honestly didn't even realize it at all. Taking the various different kinds of sufferings and hardships of this illness as an example, even these do not in fact last for even a single moment. What he basically means is, from the perspective of the true nature of things, samsara is of course impermanent, suffering, and without self. For sentient beings, because of our attachment to inherent existence, we may not realize things as suffering, empty, and impermanent. We do not understand these principles. However, because this illness has arisen, it makes me feel all different kinds of profound suffering. If I get ill, I may experience all sorts of mental and physical suffering. Then I also feel that even a single moment is impermanent. In the treatise on the Four Noble Truths, it says, all conditioned phenomena inevitably perish moment by moment. So there's nothing that lasts permanently. It feels too brief. Take Shanghai this time, for example. Everyone knows, once the country's economic center, so incredibly prosperous there, but once the pandemic spread, many voices could be heard inside, all sorts of suffering, which in the past would have been unimaginable. Hong Kong's pandemic is similar. The pandemic in London, England, is the same. All of the world's most prosperous cities throughout history, once this plague strikes, once it appears, the entire city comes to a standstill. Couldn't quiet down. Now it's been over a month or however many days, and nothing can be done outside at all. It is impermanence each moment. If you look at our past, it's probably something we couldn't even imagine. But those who have practiced contemplating impermanence, the Buddhist scriptures have always talked about it, all kinds of suffering. Take this pandemic as an example. In many places around us, compared to our previous way of life, in the past, there have been absolutely earth-shattering changes. This is something that's obvious to everyone. So sometimes when we have this kind of thoughtful and reflective Buddhist perspective, even though we may not be able to do anything, we should at the very least clearly understand the principle in order to proceed. So with this kind of illness, no matter whether in the past, when these illnesses happen to others, everyone didn't mind it. But once it happens to yourself, you definitely feel it. When the pandemic broke out last year, I was in Chengdu. At that time, even food couldn't be delivered or transported. Every day, we just slowly cooked a little porridge. At that time, I deeply felt that in the past, people were so free and could go anywhere and eat whatever you liked. But now, it's become really, really extremely difficult. I truly feel it now. Big cities today, many people are somehow surviving for several long days just by drinking only a little bit of porridge. Even billionaires, some of the richest people in the world, are struggling and fighting just to get a single, simple steamed bun. And so many celebrities are struggling for the little food available right now. If so, what about us ordinary people? The regular, average, elderly, what kind of situation are they facing? This is something everyone understands very well. So if we take this illness as an example, for instance, everything is truly impermanent. So how do we practice contemplation? If we observe the body and mind, then it is simply nothing but a collection of various phenomena. There is no such thing as the so-called self at all. At this point, we now need to observe deeply. Everyone facing illness, technical terminology, or you observe through certain phenomena. But if you, when you are ill, your wisdom keeps up, observe body and mind, observe body-mind. In fact, apart from these various aggregates, the so-called self truly does not exist either. This is a distinctive feature of Buddhism. In the Jewel Garland of the Middle Way, it is said, a person is neither earth, nor water, nor fire, wind, or space, neither consciousness, nor all of these. Apart from these, what is a person? The so-called self is not earth, water, fire, or wind, nor is it space, nor is consciousness, or anything else truly. So in that case, where exactly is the so-called self? If you really observe me being sick, if I am sick, where am I? You should observe this. Are earth, water, fire, and wind you? Is your entire body from top to bottom you? Is the mind or consciousness you? When we teach Vajrayana, we specifically observe the origins and development of mind. When observing in this way, I really can't achieve it. The fact that I cannot find it is not something Buddhism just made up. If you are a wise or intellectual, when you observe, it's also, you will likely find this self can't be found anywhere. So if it can't be found, does that mean there is no illness? Not at all. This phenomenon is explained, but it is because of our attachment to self and what belongs to self that we become attached to this body. And that's exactly why the human body often experiences such significant pain and various forms of illness. So for those of us who have studied the Vimalakirti Sutra, in the Vimalakirti Sutra it says, the union of the four elements is conventionally called the body. The four elements have no master, and and the body has no self. Moreover, the arising of illness is all due to attachment to the self. Don't recall. But the meaning is that because the four elements come together, this is what we call the body. But in fact, this body has no owner, no self. If there's no self, does that mean it truly doesn't exist? That's not the case. Because of self-grasping, illness can still arise. This is also explained very clearly here. Logically, the self does not exist. But because of our ignorance and afflictions, self-attachment exists. Self-attachment, illness shows, can also arise in a dreamlike, illusory manner. Once we understand this principle, we should think in this way. So now, whether it is the demon of illness or the demon of resentment, all sentient beings who are in fact dominated and controlled by them, how much they long for this body. When we are ill, there are all kinds of karmic creditors and enemies, some evil spirits, adversaries, and vengeful demons. If they wish to harm me, if they want to obtain this body, I should give it away to them without any stinginess. Contemplate this carefully, repeatedly. After thinking in this way, after repeatedly generating this intention, again and again contemplate appropriately and recite the chöd practice. If you have a little time, you can practice extensive versions of the chöd practice, such as the renowned and profound chöd practice of the great master Dujum Rinpoche, for example, or the chöd practice of Vajrayogini. These practices remain abroad. Everyone holds a small traditional hand drum and begins to chant. Originally, the third Dujum Rinpoche, he propagated the teachings quite well, but unfortunately he also passed away at a young age. In Bhutan and many other places, people practice the extensive chöd of Dujum Rinpoche. Then generally we practice the short chöd from the Longchen Nyingthig preliminaries. As for the level of detail, you can decide yourself. Choose the appropriate level of detail as needed. Now, with gentle and mindful intention, slowly begin reciting the chöd practice. In this way, you slowly begin to offer your body. Of course, if you really can't do other practice, you can also practice on your own. As taught in the words of my perfect teacher, if you recite "Save me, protect me" 100 times, is not really as supreme as saying "Eat me, take me" just once. What this means is, if you keep saying, "I want to protect myself," you try to protect yourself, more openings for evil forces. When your attachment is strong, they can take advantage of it. If you relax, just eat me, take me away. Take body away, take mind away. If you let them take all, then instead, with this kind of offering, they become powerless. They become embarrassed and can't do anything. So sometimes the more attached, including worldly emotions and many other things, the more tightly you hold on, the more you desperately cling. It's like grasping a pile of sand. Eventually, you lose it all. But if you relax, many things will come naturally. The body is the same way. The more you protect it, the more you keep thinking, protect me, save me, don't give up on me. It's as if evil spirits and negative influences immediately enter your body. If we say, "I want to make offerings," if you need to leave, then leave. Whatever happens, happen. Then you become even more relaxed. So it's best to practice in this way on a consistent basis. Thus, they say this temporarily purifies illnesses and perfects the accumulation of merit. With the special, this is in our usual practice, as we typically do, truly letting go of our own physical body completely. When you are ill, didn't I mention the other day, if you really do need to have surgery, nosebleed. Some females often have gynecological issues and lose a lot of blood. Like men, they also frequently suffer from various illnesses. At such times, you should think in your heart, "May many sentient beings receive my fresh blood, receive my flesh and blood, receive everything, absolutely everything, all that I have. Since beginningless time, I have had so many bodies, but I never made good use of them." So for some Buddhists, when they really have to undergo major surgery, they make a vow and develop bodhicitta in the morning. Today I will practice the generosity of offering my body. If there are any worldly debts or obligations I owe, let them come to me without delay. And today I will give with a mind of generosity. Finally, dedicate the merit. I think this is a very good opportunity to practice generosity. Furthermore, the Sutra of Destroying the 3,000 Worlds, it's better with Sutra at the end. This is a Sutrayana scripture. In the smasher of the Great Thousand Sutra, it is also said, profound wisdom, enduring virtue and goodness, steadiness, and determination. For those who sincerely practice the noble truths, they should frequently reflect and even be willing to give up their own bodies. If this is the case, then you can be free from the 8 fears and 8 difficulties. 8 difficulties in our daily lives. There are water and fire, elephants, lions, poisonous snakes, rakshasas, and also bandits and the like. For example, the Mahavaipulya Sutra seems to have slightly different explanations. I remember the general meaning being like this: war, evil spirits, and inauspicious stars, meteors in the sky. These unlucky stars and malignant diseases and severe illnesses and wild animals, and also bandits, drought, flood, and famine. Grain calamity likely means famine, a disaster affecting the 5 grains. The Great Collection Sutra should mention 8 difficulties. About these difficulties, they are things that people encounter nowadays, such as disasters of earth, water, fire, and harm from humans and non-humans. All of these are forms of calamity. So for those who are wise and have firm faith, they offer the entire body as an act of generosity. Don't we often recite certain body offering rituals, or recite some fire offerings or fire pujas? In Mahayana Buddhism, we usually practice giving and letting go. In this way, it can be said that this is truly the best method. Therefore, clinging to oneself gives rise to all afflictions and suffering. So we should avoid attachment as possible and practice generosity. This is the actual practice of giving. When we are ill, we practice giving. Giving isn't limited to material giving, dharma giving. How to practice giving? Actually, when we are ill, the best form of giving is offering our own body. Other possessions, children, millions cannot compare to giving one's body. It's also mentioned in the preliminary practices. So when we ourselves are even sick, I never thought of this before, in the body. From the perspective of modern medicine, it certainly must be a kind of immune system, perhaps in some way in the body, or an imbalance among the body's 4 elements. But from the perspective of Buddhism and some ancient teachings, when our body is sick, it's due to all kinds of harm from various sentient beings. They absorb your vital energy or drink your very essence and blood and so on. For example, there are many such things, indeed quite a few. Making offerings is the best thing to do. Make a vow. I am sick, so be it, take my body away, if it benefits you. No matter who you are, I offer my body to you with sincerity and respect. In this way, many people have recovered from illness because of this, especially when practicing chöd. This is very important. When you fall ill, practice chöd. If you are in too much pain to recite yourself, have those around you recite a little and make some food offerings. This is also perfectly acceptable. The second point is that when you are ill, you can practice the perfection of morality. Because this body is harmed by illness, if your body is ever harmed by illness, even slightly, you will naturally distance yourself from nocturnal emissions. Generally, when young people are physically energetic, nocturnal emissions often occur, encountering circumstances then that are subject to change, and similar worldly ordinary pleasures. Normally, when you are in good health, for monastics or recipients of special empowerments, nocturnal emission, loss of semen, or seminal discharge, these are all not permitted. There are precepts on this in Vajrayana and Sutrayana traditions. However, if your health is poor, these issues do not occur. For example, like Nanda in the past, there should be such an example. I think I've mentioned it before. Once Nanda saw a worldly and elegant princess or something like that, she had great faith in the Buddha. Later, she saw Nanda monastic. She trusted him and paid homage. Afterwards, because Nanda developed attachment towards her, he exhibited some impure behavior. At that time, the princess spoke to the Buddha. Why is there such a phenomenon among your disciples? So in some of the precepts from the past, there are also similar kinds of incidents or situations like these as well in various circumstances. Whether it's men or women, when the body is strong, people tend to break precepts more often and are much more likely to engage in inappropriate or improper behavior. But once your body becomes especially weak after falling ill, then you might not even have the opportunity to commit negative actions. Killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying. Someone who used to be especially strong and aggressive after getting sick for a while might become more well-behaved. So in this way, getting sick can also be a good thing. For example, if you do fall ill, maybe you did negative karma, but after getting sick, you have the opportunity, your body won't allow it either. In this case, you have no choice but to practice according to Dharma. You should continuously practice the firm vow to uphold the supreme undefiled precepts. He continuously upholds the supreme undefiled precepts. These are supreme precepts of the noble ones. Moreover, making vows and practicing virtuous deeds is extremely beneficial for oneself. Some of them were young monks who at a later time eventually became ill. They hadn't got sick. They would have broken their precepts here. But because their health was poor, they were able to live a life of virtue from beginning to end. Such cases also exist. So actually, if you do in fact happen to get sick, it can also be beneficial for your observance of precepts. And there are also those who perfected the morality paramita. Third is patience. When practicing patience, one should also reflect in their heart. These sufferings of illness are the ripening and unfolding of each and every one of the karma that I have brought about and created in the past. And that is why they have manifested in this way. Any illness is definitely related to negative karma from the past. May the causes of suffering for all sentient beings and all the pain I am truly experiencing right now, all of these burdens, these responsibilities, they ripen upon Melet. Me bear them. You see, in this way, this is truly the bodhicitta of exchanging self and others. Why am I like this now? Suffering from headaches and foot pain every day. It must be because I have often harmed these sentient beings. So now, with this illness I have, may sufferings, causes and results ripen upon me, let me bear them. Of course, this requires considerable mental strength. Otherwise, ordinary people might not even really dare to do so. In our real lives, there are also cases like this. Often, for example, when some pregnant women are actually giving birth, when she is experiencing extreme pain, they visualize all mothers' suffering being felt by themselves. In that instant, as if their body and mind have separated, although the body experiences suffering, the mind feels no suffering. In the end, all of their disasters all completely disappear without remainder. This is something that some mothers in Tibetan history have experienced as a direct result of practicing the exchange of self and others. So in our daily lives, when we encounter some disasters, or when we are going through especially painful and difficult times, this time I still, if I have an eye disease, I can wish to take on the suffering of all sentient beings with eye problems. In this way, although the illness seems bad, in reality, for someone with a bit of spiritual attainment, it should actually be a good thing. Khenpo Jigme Rinpoche, later met him once, and I said, in a certain sense, your work and your life were at their peak. So I felt it was a bit of a pity. But in another sense, in terms of personal spiritual practice, I believe that this illness for you is also a very good supportive condition. Then he smiled and said, it's very difficult, especially when the pain is intense. it feels like all my practice is just completely forgotten. But when I feel a little better, my own practice also improves just a little. He said this. So for many of us, it seems that in the end, some people, including Dharma teachers, were doing well, but eventually they were plagued by illness. It seems every day, let alone teaching, even just living a normal life is extremely painful, extremely difficult. But I think if one has a certain level, then every day they should be able to transform such suffering into a part of their path. Swap self with others. If one practices by exchanging self and others, perhaps one's spiritual attainment has the opportunity to grow very quickly and rapidly. That's just how it is, really. In the following section, we will talk about diligence in detail. In fact, being ill can also be beneficial for cultivating diligence. Such mind training is indeed not a matter of chance, but put on constant reverence, always, at all times. The great armor of preparatory diligent effort, and practice diligently without any interruption. So in fact, as a matter of fact, when we are feeling ill or unwell, for some people, there is little difference between being sick and not being sick. Others, they become more and more diligent when they are ill. When they are not sick, just as mentioned earlier, they don't circumambulate, recite, memorize, or do anything. Some people are very diligent when they are not sick, but once they get sick, it's like a stone hitting a sparrow suddenly. Even with just a minor cold, they spend every day sleeping. I can't. I have a cold. I'm sick. I don't want to eat now or talk. I don't want to walk. I don't want to read. I don't really want to do anything. Please don't come near me. If anyone comes close to them, they really can't stand it. Some people, after getting sick, experience what we Tibetans call nesisanger from illness. When they're sick, they have a special kind of anger. The anger and resentment caused by illness just keeps growing. But for some people, constantly, day in and day out, even when they're sick, they still do what needs to be done. And when they're not sick, they also get things done, especially when they're ill. They maintain both constant diligence and respectful diligence, never stopping. So what kind of armor does he put on exactly? Armor, as everyone undoubtedly knows, in battle, not like the current war between Ukraine and Russia, when they fight, they seem to be wearing something green, but underneath is armor. Ordinary bullets and such can't penetrate it. So when we're sick, what do we need? We need to put on the armor of constant diligence and respectful diligence. What is constant diligence? It means being just as diligent as you are when you're not sick. Constant diligence. What is reverent diligence? After you become ill, towards spiritual teachers, the 3 jewels and the 4 noble truths, if these are objects you should respect, continue respecting them. It's not that at this time you start disregarding everyone. It's not like that. So if you keep being diligent like this, achieving realization won't be difficult. In the ornament of the sutras, it is said, as when making fire, one must be constant. If the rubbing of the wood is not interrupted in the middle, if it is constant and continues like this, then the fire will naturally arise. Diligence works the same way. Sometimes, even when we are truly ill, we should be even more so. But if the illness is really severe, then there's nothing we can do. For example, when I had surgery before, there was nothing I could do then. After the surgery, I started again. And in less than a month, I wanted to give a teaching on the Medicine Buddha Sutra or something similar. When I was discharged from the hospital, I asked the doctor in Beijing whether I could give lectures. Asked 2 questions. One was, if I fly, can I give a lecture? He said, taking a plane might not be possible. I should take the train. I took the train here. Whether I could teach the scriptures. He said, don't speak loudly. It's fine to give lectures too. Later, when I was teaching the medicine, sometimes the pain was intense with nothing I could do. I'm not saying I'm special in any way. But in reality, as someone who is ill, if I didn't do anything just because I was sick, I'm afraid that wouldn't work either. So sometimes, even for myself, last year I wrote a brief autobiography about myself, actually, and a few treatises were actually completed while I was in the hospital. hospitalized. I wondered if I deliberately wrote the location there, but I didn't. It was simply that the work happened to be finished at that time. I had been working on them, and by the time I was there, they happened to be completed. Includes Renji in Shanghai, Six People's Hospital in Hangzhou, and more frequently West China Hospital in Chengdu. I often went there. In recent years, my hospital stays haven't been as long as before. So generally for translations or writings, they are done like Larung or elsewhere, for example. But in reality, it's not as if I haven't been ill. So in some ways, things are probably completely different from before. So you are also, to your body, on one hand, I'm quite satisfied with it, as it has, to be honest, actually cooperated with me. My body is unattractive. The quality is quite bad too. When my parents gave it to me, it wasn't an imported body. It must have been a domestically made one. But relying on this shabby body, I've taught and explained the Dharma, though I wouldn't dare claim to be as perfect as a full moon, but at the very least, I've done my best. I think that's really, truly the case for each of us. With a flawed body, if you don't practice diligently all the time, then you will never be free from illness. A day of perfect health is rare for ordinary people. Today, it's a headache. Tomorrow, stomach pain. Today, you catch a cold. Today, your heart hurts. If it's not physical pain, then it's emotional discomfort. You can't stand this and can't tolerate that. And then you feel a bit uneasy inside and so on as these feelings continue. Every ordinary person can experience this. Few people benefit from past lives, still have healthy bodies and are never ill. Many people, especially as they get older and older, by the time they reach 50 or 60 years old, this is basically the case. Once my teacher and Alimeju, they would often ask each other in the morning, did you sleep well last night? Did you sleep well? No need to ask that. If you can't sleep well, you can recite texts or read books. But now it doesn't seem to be like that. As people gradually get older and older, they seem to care a lot about sleep and about illness. In our Tibetan region, when people get a bit older, when they first meet someone, hello, how are you doing today? Are you sick? Just checking in. They often ask like this. So for us humans, if we don't have consistent long-term diligence and true perseverance over time, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to manage as well. So by relying on illness, sometimes it can also inspire long-term perseverance and diligent respect. This is also very important. Next, the fifth point, meditation, which is about mindfulness and relaxation. If a certain illness clearly brings pain, if you find your attention drifting, gently remind yourself not to lose sight of your object of focus, stay present, visualizing self-nature, emptiness, disease, fusion, focusing your mind single-pointedly. Everyone knows this for sure. If we experience pain somewhere, headache, heart pain in these, at that time, you must not, under any circumstances, forget your practice. There are two methods for not forgetting practice. One is the conventional method of practice, and the other is the ultimate method of practice. The conventional truth method of practice is, as we discussed earlier, focus your mind single-pointedly on this illness and do not lose compassion for sentient beings, and practice the exchange of self and others as much as possible. Cultivate such compassion for sentient beings. This is meditation at the conventional level. Then there's also a meditation method on the ultimate level. For ultimate meditation, when you contract any illness, you merge the very nature of that illness with emptiness. In this way, there is truly nothing left to be emotionally attached to at all. This is a focused method of practice. When you are ill, you can practice meditative concentration. How should you practice? Either you focus single-mindedly, merging your own illness with the illnesses of all sentient beings, and then dedicate the merit and make aspirations for them. Or you focus single-mindedly on the emptiness of all phenomena, and in this way, the illness as well, whether it is the patient, the body, or the mind. There are many aspects you can contemplate. I don't know if everyone remembers when we were studying the Vimalakirti Sutra. Manjushri came to layman Vimalakirti and asked him how his health was, whether he was ill. Then Vimalakirti responded, "What is the color of illness and what is its shape?" In the end, he asked, Is the body actually sick? Is the mind actually sick? Then Vimalakirti said, it is not united with it is not the heart in harmony, because the heart is like an illusion. It's not merged with the body. The body is beyond characteristics, nor is it merged with mind and illness, because the mind is like a dream, like an illusion. So after this was said, Manjushri Bodhisattva and many other fortunate beings attained liberation. We practice meditation. We can either practice in a conventional way, which is also a great opportunity. You have a heartache today, maybe, and you meditate by cultivating compassion, or if your heart aches again today, approach it as emptiness. Is this pain actually with the body itself, or is it with the mind? When you observe, if you have sharp faculties, you may be enlightened. And this is also very important. And finally, the perfection of wisdom. If we fall ill, we can also practice the perfection of wisdom. After listening to and contemplating these healing teachings from the Guru, we begin to meditate on their meaning. It is best to first, having just heard these teachings related to healing, Mipham Rinpoche teaches this. When I have the opportunity, I would also like to translate them. As for others, the other day, I took a look. Tibetan Buddhist masters have given teachings on transforming illness into the path. If we discuss these more in the future, we will find them useful. I think many of them would be useful. Some people might say, I'm in great health. These illnesses are your group's problem. They don't concern me. I eat the best. I sleep the best. Now I'm a little overweight. That's my biggest worry. Other than that, I won't get sick. But you can't say that everything is impermanent. To understand the pain in the world, the one who feels pain and the manner of pain, all are like a dream, like an illusion. When you analyze this with the wisdom of Prajnaparamita, then in worldly terms, the body that experiences pain, the illness that can cause pain, and the manner in which the pain is simply felt, whether it's stabbing or cramping pain, chronic or acute pain conditions. Whether it's a dull pain or an obvious pain, there are many ways pain manifests. But the way pain manifests, the illness and the so-called body, when we observe these three, when examining them with wisdom in the conventional realm, before we examine them, it really does seem like all three of them exist. But after you examine them, they just don't really exist. Gendun Chopal said in his Songs of Realization that if you don't very carefully and thoroughly examine with great attention to detail, when our hand is pricked by a needle, it feels very painful. It seems to exist, indeed. But when you observe it with the wisdom of Prajnaparamita, it seems not to exist. So in the conventional world, if we carefully examine the experiencer of pain and the object of pain, in fact, they also do not truly exist. I've seen in some of Chan Master Zibo's teachings as well, actually, that first, when we are ill, we should observe the one who experiences pain. If there is no experiencer of pain, then there is also no object of pain. If neither the experiencer of pain nor the object of pain exist, it is an illusion arising in the mind. Apart from this, there is no real pain. So in his final summary, he said, many ancients discovered the nature of mind through illness. In ancient times, there were many great masters who, while suffering from illness, came to truly recognize the nature of mind quite a lot. In fact, how did great masters attain enlightenment? Who attained enlightenment through illness? I think the same will be true for us here. In the future, many people will be enlightened by falling ill. There will be many such cases. Here, pain's experiencer are also like dreams and illusions in the conventional sense. Then, realizing ultimately all illness and pain are free from arising, abiding, and ceasing, through this, all illness is emptiness. It also clearly, truly, and unmistakably manifests as great bliss. So from the ultimate perspective, from the perspective of the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, as taught in the fundamental wisdom of the middle way, this illness and pain certainly has no initial arising, no abiding in the middle, and ultimately it cannot have a cessation. Thus, from the second turning of the wheel of Dharma perspective, the nature of illness is emptiness. From the perspective of the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, in fact, this illness has an indestructible aspect of light. This is called the wisdom of great bliss. So by using this illness, we truly can first realize that it is like a dream, like an illusion. All concepts are transcended. There is no arising, abiding, or ceasing. Then, when you attain enlightenment, this principle is not a nihilistic, mere emptiness. All qualities of abandonment and realization, that is to say, both the qualities of maturation and the qualities of freedom from defilements are fully perfected. Such principles should become clear, as explained in the Ratnagotra Shastra. It is the clearly manifested wisdom of great bliss. Therefore, by relying on a certain illness to enhance realization, one will attain the fruition of the three bodies. After falling ill, you realize more. Finally, attain enlightenment and achieve the fruition of the three kayas. So, what is truly worthy of praise, this method of transforming illness into the path. Why is that? It is a companion in cultivating Bodhi. We should praise this illness and not fear illness, nor avoid talking about it. Do not be afraid of this kind of illness. In fact, we should truly praise it. But what should we praise? It's not that you should praise the fact that you got sick. It's not like that. The pandemic would be praiseworthy. But after the pandemic occurred, many practitioners relied on transforming adversity into the path, and they could attain enlightenment. I sometimes really think sentient beings here are pitiable. Actually, if they understood Buddhist principles, then whether it's those who died during the pandemic this time, or those who were infected, at least have reduced fear, they would have a deeper understanding of this illness. In fact, many important truths in life, most people are more familiar with superficial principles. Deeper truths. It takes someone of a certain caliber to be able to analyze things in depth. There are many more teachings on transforming illness into the path. According to some Buddhist views, can actually be considered a rather profound method of analysis. If we view it this way, often reflect and practice it, then when we get ill, we will have a kind of, even if you don't make much progress, even if it feels slow, there won't be great harm. Basically, we can transform it into a path of practice. So that day I really thought, oh, maybe I should get sick and give it a try. But after I actually got sick, it really wasn't very successful. For a long time, I didn't feel like reciting scriptures. I stopped reciting scriptures for several days. Later, I eventually made up for it. It all seems good when you talk. But when you actually try to practice, it's not like that. Especially when you're facing intense fear or a serious illness, it seems like all your usual practices just vanish completely. Then you have no courage, no confidence. People encounter such phenomena, but speaking for most of us, sentient beings have different capacities. Some people cultivate very well. As long as you give them a hint, they understand. For some, no matter how you explain, if 100 or 1,000 times, they won't make any progress at all. It's like a stone that's been completely soaked in water for a long time. It still won't become soft. There's just no way at all. Next, a verse from Mipham Rinpoche. Illness is not illness. Illness is the great bliss of the Dharmakaya. Sickness, when seen by a great master or accomplished practitioner, in reality, this illness is not an illness. Then what is it? Illness is the great bliss of the Dharmakaya. Illness is a manifestation, a dance of the Dharmakaya's great bliss and wisdom. Those who understand this yoga, sick or not, have no difference to realize this. For a yogi who is awakened in this way, illness and non-illness are no different to them. So I hope that many of us will often write this down somewhere visible. Although we probably can't do this now, at the very least it's actually quite meaningful and certainly not insignificant. We tend to think that illness is very painful, but in truth it is not really suffering. Why is that? Because it is the wisdom of inseparability of emptiness and bliss. If you become enlightened, then for such an enlightened master, There is no difference between being ill and not being ill. No difference to you? In this case, would you feel sad if you got sick? No, you wouldn't. Would you feel happy if you weren't sick? It's nothing much. Illness or not don't matter to them. Maybe for him, their practice is further enhanced. Indeed, realization elevated. In this way, illness, in a certain sense, is actually very meaningful. Azeda made. Azeda refers to Mipham, composed by Mipham Rinpoche. May auspiciousness increase. All right, so we'll stop here for today.
Bandara badna Sodargye bandara badna Sodargye bandara badna Sodargye